For you, what have been like the biggest changes you've seen in podcasting over the years? Like I know like the technology has changed dramatically, but I guess what if for you, if you looked at and you're like, there's been this change, that change, maybe some good ones, maybe some bad ones. Like what have you kind of seen in the podcast world?
I think in the beginning, well, I mean, there's the term pod fading for a reason. And I think the number is 7. Like if you get to 7, then you realize, whoa, this is way harder than I thought. And people, I think in the beginning, obviously we're riding the serial wave. And so there was a wave of people trying to make like NPR style quality, podcasts, and they all sounded like serial knockoffs. So you can tell that they were just trying to mimicking that style. And so I think people just got in and got out, and it was probably good for podcasting to just shake those folks out. And because you can see, friends that we know that have been doing this for a while, and they've just been consistent. And so I think over time, I think it's people thinking like trying to build up a celebrity profile from a podcast. And we hear like these multi-million-dollar podcasts that are being created by these huge production studios. And like after one season, they're done because it's like nobody's listening to them.
Well, I know even NPR, and this was like last year, Adam Curry actually did a whole thing on this on No Agenda about it. Like NPR laid off, it was like half or a third of like their entire staff because they were trying to take everything they did with radio and bring it to podcasting. And it's just not the same at all.
No. And then I think obviously what's happening recently now is with YouTube, the growth of YouTube. YouTube is the number 2 search engine. Spotify has now allowed you to upload your video. So they're now competing with YouTube as a video platform. So it's interesting to see. And it's changing the dynamic because most podcasters, what they loved about podcasting was that they could just be sort of like anonymous and you could just hear their voice and you don't have to do video. So it's really changing how people are thinking about it and even what the term means. And I know Adam has his own thoughts about what exactly is a podcast, but I think it was an eye opener for me a couple of years ago when I was taking a lift to the airport and I told the driver I had a podcast, and he's like, we got to the airport and he pulls out his phone and he opens up YouTube. It's the first app he went to right away.
That's a very, very good point. I know Adam's still been like, no, it's not. I don't get on video for anyone. Hey, I've got him on video twice, but like, he's like, I don't get on video for anyone. We do audio only. Yeah. But I do think we have to look at how we're going to reach people.
Yeah.
And like, I know I'm very much to purists as a lot of people are out there, but at the same time, that can cut off our ability to reach new people, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a platform that has that much reach, it's really, you can fight it. You can just go in kicking and screaming and be like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to post my content on there. But these platforms like Riverside, like Squadcast, like Zencastr, they're making it easier to, to have no excuses to have high quality audio and video now. And obviously if you're serious about building a brand or building your own visibility, there's so many different ways to do it. And even now, like I've taken a newsletter I've been doing for 3 years that I've just been publishing. And now I'm inspired by this guy, Dan Coe, who's blown up and become really popular. But I'm reading out the newsletters on camera now to kind of do a solo episode because I'm like, I want to get more visibility and I want to get this content found. If you're really passionate about what you're doing and you really feel that your message is like important and could be life-changing, you sort of owe it to your audience to get it out there on all the platforms as much as possible. Because if you're just doing it as a hobby and it's just like something that's just a pastime for you and you're not really serious about the content, I get it. But, and I know this is, something that's near and dear to your heart. If you're delivering a message that you feel is important and more people need to hear it, then you got to be on the platforms that have the widest distribution. It just makes the most sense.
Well, what's funny, and I don't know if this shows kind of the direction we're going. I started another YouTube channel purely on Roman Empire stuff. And I actually haven't released it as a podcast anywhere at this point in time. And this new Roman Empire channel is now doing somehow bigger numbers than my regular podcast. It's growing at this like gargantuan rate.
Yeah.
But I've kind of reimagined the whole thing. I don't even have an audio feed out there. So I think it is definitely interesting the direction things are going related to video.
Yeah. And it might, again, it could just be another opportunity to find an audience because a lot of people are going into Spotify, are going into Apple, and they're searching for topics that are pain points for them. And that's why, when we think about like producing shows, we tell clients like title your episode. Like it's one of the first exercises we do with them, title your first 12 episodes, because think about your episodes as being prescriptive. Like, what are people, what's a pain point? What's something they're struggling with? Because they're going to see that and they're like, oh, okay, is this specific episode going to solve the problem that I have right now?
Well, and I think the thing that's interesting about, kind of the direction that we're going with YouTube, at least the thing it's solved for me, and I don't know how it's been for other people, is this is a number of years ago. This is probably like 2013, 14. Like Ryan Moran had done an episode about the weird thing about podcasting is you put out a bunch of content. You don't know if anyone's listening to it. You kind of have these like download numbers. You don't really get a ton of feedback. Once in a while, you get an email or something like that. The thing that's been different about, being on YouTube and Rumble and some of these other places, and I don't know, maybe this is something that changes in the future, or maybe somebody's already solved this. I don't know.